Hello, I'm Matt Singer. I am the arts and culture editor at Willamette Week, and my guest today, plural, is Larry McCool. He is the owner of Mystic Llama Farms in Jefferson, Oregon, and he is joined by Caesar, best known in Portland as the No Drama Llama. Larry and Caesar, thank you very much, both of you, for being here today.
Hey, Matt, no problem. We are really glad to be here with you in Llama Week. It's our pleasure. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So people in Portland have known about Caesar for a couple of years now. You went viral a few years ago. This photo of Caesar on the Max kind of introduced a lot of people in town to Caesar. But now you're becoming more famous nationally thanks to coverage of the protests in Portland, which you've been taking Caesar to on occasion.
Right.
Can you tell me kind of what compelled you to start bringing Caesar down to the protests?
Well, one thing with Caesar is, we've been involved in quite a few different marches and protests throughout the last, 2 or 3 years. More or less confrontational than the Black Lives Matter. We do the Women's March. We do traditional marches. We do marches, for LGBT communities. But the Black Lives Matter became a really important issue for us and for me in particular. So I wanted to make sure that we, had a chance to introduce Cesar to the community and let him, show that he is very much supportive of the cause that is going on. So it was a natural fit for us to bring him to the first march and protest in Portland.
And
he's a little bit loving right now, as you can tell.
So what? So you've been bringing him down to the protest. What is people's reaction?
It was, yeah. So the first ones that we went to were in early June, and those you probably remember. Those were just more of the kind of the calmer protests. Those were just marches to bring recognition to Black Lives Matter. So he was very well accepted in that. We were down at the Pioneer Courthouse Square, which for your non-Portland readers is a very big square in Portland. And there was actually 10,000 people in that square at the time. And we were dead center right in the middle of that march. But to get there, we were in with 5,000 people, and we were going across the Burnside Bridge. And he just was so accepted into the community, and everybody knew Cesar. And it was a thing for them to know that Cesar was there to bring calm and some semblance of, peace and quiet for people. And that's how they kind of reacted to him. It kind of brought the tension down. And that's what the last 3 or 4 marches and protests we were at were, to kind of bring the tension down, because, it got pretty heated, and it still is a little bit. But there in late July when we were there was a lot of, close to rioting going on where we were even at.
Yeah, I was going to ask, as you said, these are, fairly tense events where I think, and they're kind of unpredictable, things can kind of explode at any moment. Did you have sort of like a plan for if that happened, and kind of like how would a llama react in the middle of a, potential riot situation?
Yeah, exactly. And so we took all that into consideration when I took him down there. We were right, we got there probably when it was still light out, and there was, thousands of people there. And they were just kind of milling around, standing around, kind of waiting for things to happen. And we knew what the situation was going to be. But, we were actually approached by Black Lives Matter and protesters who came up to us, and they were giving us kind of some details and information on what to expect, when to expect it. They would say, okay, so probably in the next 30 minutes to happen, the next 10 minutes, this is going to happen. So they were giving us some really good feedback on this, because they knew Cesar, and they knew the situation. We did not want to put him in any kind of riot situation. But that being said, as we kind of saw that the tension was picking up, we moved to the back a little bit. But we were very much aware. We heard the flash bombs going off, and we could smell the tear gas happening around us. And, the one thing he did was bring the tension down a little bit. We had people in full riot gear. I mean, they were wearing face masks, and they had the shields on and everything. but during that, even that period of time, they actually took the time to come up and they recognized Cesar, and they came up and they wanted to, take pictures with him and, meet him. So even as tense as it was, he was able to bring the tension down, even for that short period of time. And that gave us opportunity to kind of move back a little bit, because I'm not going to put Cesar in a real, contentious situation at all. So we appreciate what they were doing. Now, that was the later on marches. The early marches, were much, much more peaceful. And so the big one in Pioneer Court Square, we were actually invited by the Black Lives Matters group speakers to stand with them up on the stage in the square. And as the crowd was getting pretty, riled up and contentious a little bit, we stood there right with them. And after it was over, they wanted to come up to us, and they also took pictures with Cesar. So they recognized the value that he had with them too. So,
yeah. So do you know at all how a llama would react to tear gas?
I really don't know. And I've kind of researched that just a little bit. I kind of thought, what is the situation? But as far as I can tell, there is no history of that at all to know whether it, what the situation might be. Now, maybe down in certain parts of the world, South America, maybe where there's been some riots and things like that, maybe that has been documented, but nothing that I know of. But I really wanted to assure everybody and all Cesar's friends, because I get this asked a lot. I was never going to put Cesar in a situation where he was going to get tear gas.
So Portland has had, a few, like what we might call celebrity llamas over the last few years. Is that particular to Portland? Is there something about the city of Portland that makes it, amenable, that breeds a kind of like, atmosphere where a llama can actually become famous?
Well, yeah, I think you were speaking of, like Rojo, the ones from Vancouver, Washington. And yeah, it does seem like the Northwest is kind of a hot spot for that. Now, one thing people may not understand or know is that llamas started in Oregon. So the very first llamas farmed in the United States was in Oregon. They started in Sisters, Oregon. So, at one time, there was more llamas in Oregon than any other state. And there still is a large quantity of llamas. So here in the valley that we live in, it's kind of a hot spot for llamas. So Oregon, Deschutes County is probably the llama capital of the United States. So quite a few llamas here. But as far as therapy go, I think it's just kind of a natural progression that, we like to be out and about with our animals. And if we can, bring a lot of peace and quiet, that's what we really love.